Hello, hello. Good morning. Welcome to another workshop. It's been a minute. We hope you've been doing well. And I'm pretty excited to introduce you to today's speaker. I am sorry we started late. We just had a few technical hitches that we needed to fix before we started. As you've seen, as we've started, we have continued, but we press on, don't we? So allow me to get this show on the road by introducing you to Nairobi Garage and then introducing you to our speaker of the day. So my name is Ziggy Tahi and I am the community manager at Nairobi Garage Westlands. And for those who are not familiar with Nairobi Garage, allow me to give you a brief teeny weeny introduction. So Nairobi Garage, dare I say, is the biggest and largest and coolest co-working space in Nairobi and Africa. We are Goldsman. And we are seeking to be the best co-working space that there is in the landscape, right? So we have flexible workspaces that give your business space to grow and get connected to large networks and similar-minded professionals. And this is just aimed to increasing your impact and scale. Our spaces offer a variety of amenities, including fully furnished office spaces, breakout spaces, reliable internet, and bottomless tea and coffee to keep you going and as you work. We offer a virtual network of over 1,000 entrepreneurs and professionals. We are home to over 150 growth focused innovative businesses, and we have or host weekly events for members and the wider business community, such as what you are joining us for today. We currently have 5 locations. Currently, Westlands is where we're hosting today's workshop. We have Spring Valley, we have Karen, Kilimani, and CBD is our newest baby. So we believe that co-working drives innovation because whenever people share physical space, they're able to collaborate and create things they wouldn't have on their own. We host workshops like this every month to expose our members to the larger business community, and we explore areas of interest to entrepreneurs within our ecosystem. So today, we'll be tackling the mental health of an entrepreneur. Our facilitator will be Abdibasid Ali, who is a psychotherapist, a behavioral analyst, a Paul Ekman associate, and a private and corporate coach with specialties in understanding the mind, body connection, and emotional intelligence. I would like to welcome him as he gives, exploratory, the Queen knows about you, chat and conversation on how we can take care of our mental well-being as entrepreneurs, as staff members, as employees, and as general individuals. So get your pens and notepads ready because we're going to be taking notes, we're going to learn. Please engage with us in the chat section, leave your questions in the comment tab, please participate in the poll questions, and let's have an amazing session. So Abdibasid, welcome. I allow you to take the stage. May you have a great time as you interact with our members.
Oh, thank you so much, Z, for the introduction. Really looking forward to engage with you and the rest of the Nairobi Garage team and also the members of the co-working space. Um, as Z mentioned, I am someone who's passionate about raising awareness on mental health. And we chose this topic, the mental health of and well-being of entrepreneurs, because in the realm of entrepreneurs and investors, there's always meetings and conferences about and investments and creation and all that. Unfortunately, very few talk about the greatest asset it requires to become entrepreneur or anything else for that matter, which is your brain and your emotions. So today, I just wanted to bring back, for all you entrepreneurs out there, to bring back the focus to yourself and your greatest asset, which may unfortunately be your also greatest liability if you don't understand how it functions. So I've chosen to emphasize on stress today for my talk today um, because stress, unfortunately, is the driver of a lot of problems, both physical and also mental health. So before I dive into my talk, This presentation is actually in collaboration with the project Inside Out and Nairobi Garage. So the project Inside Out is at the early stage of its development. So this is actually the first official event and for the project and Inside Out. And the project Inside Out is it's inspired by my work in the therapy room and also the workshops that I've been doing. And it's to provide, eventually to provide a mental health services for people who may not have enough, who cannot afford and having a mental health and, and talk or seek a therapist. And not only that, but also the project is seeking to and empower and young professionals. So please stay tuned and look for this project. And it's a global initiative, by the way. But the first few years, we're focusing on doing a lot of work here in Africa, starting in Kenya, and also eventually expand to different countries within the continent. And yes, so please follow our social medias and yeah, and in any way you can support this project, also we would appreciate. Yes. So let me dive into and let me find, yes. So as he mentioned, this is the thing, and some of my backgrounds. Also do cognitive behavior therapy, psychological first aid, and also do provide family and adolescent and counseling as well. So I believe Z has put some few questions in the poll, and if you can quickly spend few minutes and maybe 1 or 2 minutes just to look through and see, um, yeah, and what these questions are, and for you, and let's see how the pool evolves while we talk. Great. So, before we dive into the topic of stress, and just a few numbers that I wanted to share with you. A report that was delivered in 2019 at the World Economic Forum and talking about the entrepreneurs and their well-being. It's an estimate of about 600 million entrepreneurs globally. And unfortunately, more than 50% of those entrepreneurs have one or other, some sort of mental health issue. And entrepreneurs have this additional stress element because they need to compete in an environment where there's a lot of competition going on, additional to the environmental and also, and family or the other life stressors as well. So that's for a number I wanted to share with you. And also there's also another number where you can also find at the World Health Organization saying that inactivity and due to poor mental health in the work environment, not because of sick leave, but because of inactivity, it's costing the global economy trillions each year of US dollars. So that's a lot of money going to waste, and also a lot of human um, health also and being affected by that. And simply because it is an area that is ignored. We see different part of the world, and maybe Europe and also some part of North America are picking up and focusing more on the mental health of the employees, which is good. And this is what we also want to bring in Africa. I know Kenya is actually taking this quite serious, I've spoken to some health officials who are concerning about the mental health of the professionals. Yes. So, what is stress? What we need to understand actually is um, stress can be either real or imaginary. Because humans, because of our ability to um, use our imagination, then the body cannot differentiate what you're imagining, whether it's happening with you right now or it's only in your imagination. It doesn't matter. So you can peacefully lay on your couch or your bed, but thinking of something that may stress you, then the body thinks that this stress is happening now, and it may put you in a stress situation, i.e., fight or flight situation. So, what is actually stressful? Stress is, you know, can also be some are innate in ability or to how to respond to our environment, and also some of it is also learned behaviors from early childhood, but it all comes down to how we respond to what's going out and on outside there. But because our body can, excuse me, because our body cannot differentiate whether it's what's going outside, it's real or imagination, the body will react regardless. So I have highlighted some few and stressors that people stress about mostly, which is emotional stress. We will talk more about it later, which is, and fear, anxiety, and also other stress, and physical stress can also be, you know, and, body aches and not sleeping well, and because all of this is linked to the stress hormones that are very powerful, and the human body is not meant to contain these stress hormones and for a longer period of time. Spiritual stress can be, start doubting, and your relationship with your God, or maybe someone has lost someone they that is dear to them, and they start questioning a lot of in their belief system, and so on. And or maybe and start having thoughts about maybe you're not fulfilling your spiritual obligation, or you're not good enough in the eyes of God, or etc. Um, Another other one in job or school. This is the professional life. This is actually this is a common stress factor, because there's a lot of pressure that is on the person to perform well, whether it's at work or at school, or so it could be pressure from your boss or teacher, but also pressure from your immediate environment, your parents, and other expectations. Yeah, and if we go on, so stress can be divided into three stages. Okay, so I mentioned the first thing is, and when something happens, whether you start thinking of something that's fearful or that you don't have solution to, or thinking worst case scenario, then the body thinks, it's actually happening right now, and it gives you all these stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline and so on. So this directs all the energy and blood flow to um, where it's needed. So if it's fight situation, then obviously the blood and energy flows to your those muscles that are involved in fighting. If you're fighting someone or something, and if it's flight, then it's the energy is directed to maybe you have to run or you have to jump or and so on. The second stage is um, and there's no immediate danger, but something is, and hiding behind the bushes or something. So you're alert, but it doesn't matter because there's still a lot of stress hormones and running around. Yeah, and the third and last stage is exhaustion. So this last stage is and someone who may have had stress, um, like high stress, and for years actually, um, and it's become part of their and their identity because of how they respond to things outside or things they imagine. Um, and this is actually very bad. You might find people who are chronically stressed, and one of the symptoms can be um, usually when you come home from a long day at work or school, and instead of just relaxing and taking care of your well-being, that person cannot exist in a peace situation. They cannot find peace in relaxing, or they always have to start maybe excessive cleaning or just unconsciously create situations that boost them, that gives them more of these stress hormones. Yeah. So, and another example can be someone who's chronically stressed, delaying everything to the last minute. You have a train to catch. You have time. You can go and be at the train station like at least 10, 15 minutes before, but you're delaying to the last minute so you can get all fired up and start running like a crazy person. Um, it could be one of those indications. But the problem with this stage is exhaustion, and it's your immune system is at risk, and it might compromise your immune system and lead to autoimmune diseases eventually. And another thing about stress is, and speaking of autoimmune disease, there was a research um, um, more than 90% of why people were hospitalized in the States were due to stress. So you can think stress is the root cause of a lot of both mental and physical sicknesses, unfortunately. Yeah, because we're not designed to maintain all these stress hormones in our body. Um, so while I talk, and I want this to be a dialogue actually. So if you have question while I'm talking, please just put it in the chat, and we will have it answered. So you don't have to wait all the way at the end. So here are some few basic stress-related disorders. So if we look at what how in the physical body how the stress can what it can do, and one may have a high risk of developing heart diseases, obesity, but always remember stress is a survival mode. When someone is under survival mode, so there's no development, everything stops, both physical development and also intellectual and cognitive development. Everything stops because the body thinks you're being, attacked, and you have to survive, right? So everything is rearranged for you to survive. But actually, as a matter of fact, it's only in your head most of the time because you're anxious about what is about to become. And if you're an entrepreneur or if you're a student, thinking worst case scenario, what's going to happen to me if I don't pass this exam, or what's going to happen, if I don't get this job, or and so on. Um, Obesity, your whole biology actually it's out of an order. So, and could be one of the reasons why people become obese because of stress, or also they may develop unhealthy eating patterns. Yeah. Um, Another thing that has become common, unfortunately, is also high blood pressure, diabetes. You see young people, developing this diabetes, um, headache, fatigue, low libido, and accelerated aging. Yeah. So these are some of the bodily. Um, it could be some of the bodily respond and or consequences of stress. Um, so how about emotional and other mental disorders due to long-term stress? PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So usually PTSD, we thought it would only be developed when someone experiences an extreme frightened situation. But now we also know PTSD can be developed due to long-term stress. And PTSD has some characteristics that are common, and there are some also that are not so common. It can be social isolation, as someone may not find, that um, yeah, you might see some people engaging in so many different activities or projects and running from one project to another and just cannot find that rest, moving from one place to another, or maybe just moving to a remote area by themselves. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, can also be caused from long-term untreated stress. So OCD does not necessarily have to be, a behavior that is repetitive, but it can also come as a, um, an intrusive and thoughts. Why are all these things happening? Because, as I mentioned earlier, uh, stress has powerful hormones that need to be channeled. So when there's no um, immediate danger, when there's no a lion or something that you need to survive, yeah. So where is all this going to flow? So this energy has to be channeled through somewhere, right? So it could be one of the issues why we have all these and both physical and also psychological symptoms. Um, what long-term stress can develop and lead to is also anxiety. You probably heard about anxiety, and anxiety is actually quite um, large family. This, you have social anxiety, you have a phobias, you have GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, and but you know what? Anxiety is something we all experience because it's, and, and to simplify it, is the alarm of our body telling us that something is off, something is wrong, and we need to survive. You need to pay attention to your environment and to your body. So the body is telling you, and you have to, seek help. So we all experience anxiety just like we're having a physical illnesses. So some people may go to work with flu or some minor headache, and some people may also go to work and to school with having low level of anxiety. But both physical and mental health, they are interconnected. So, but they both become huge problem you if they stop you doing what you used to do, you're in daily activities, right? So um, quickly, let me mention some of the symptoms. Anxiety. Some people may feel pressure on their chest. Some may sweat. Some people may feel there's a knot here, yeah, guts. Some may lose sleeping and insomnia. Um, And how about social anxiety? And also, it looks different for different people, but the common and denominator are, um, you know, and being anxious in social settings, like taking the train or the bus, or showing up to large gatherings, and the person might think, all these people are looking at me because and they're talking about me. So some becomes very self-centered, and actually for a good reason, because the brain is telling that person, you shouldn't be out here. You should be stay at home. That's where you're safest. But the brain, I will talk about it later, is there actually to provide you information, but not everything is accurate. Yeah, it can be. The brain is very biased. Yeah, and depression, and both men and female, and there's some common symptoms, but also females have an additional symptoms due to that and that 1 week of the month, because of their mood swing or maybe the hormonal change and so on. But depression is not only being sad; it has many faces. It's for some people it's very difficult to tell whether they're depressed or not. Um, so many people over the years develop, coping strategies, or put on this mask. They're very social. They laugh, and you could never tell if any it's that person is actually depressed. But remember, we're all looking for someone who can really look us into the eyes and saying, "How are you doing?" Beyond work, beyond professional and everything, because we're secretly, especially people who are dealing with depression, secretly looking for someone who can stop us and saying, "Hey, how are you doing, by the way?" Okay. So do never underestimate that, that really sociable friend that you have. Um, they may go through something. But depression, when it hits, when someone becomes clinically depressed, that's when you really should push all the buttons. And how does that look? They're totally isolating themselves, and they don't even want to come to the living room and enjoy TV or be socialized with their family. They just want to stay in their room, and especially in a dark room. Their personal hygiene is no longer important to them. Um, and they start losing hope, and they even want to commit suicide. When someone loses hope, thinking, why do they live? There's no reason for them to exist in this world. And some even don't have the ability to and go through with the suicide, actually, because that's how low they can go. Um, but if someone says to you, I'm tired of life, so um, I'm considering ending my life or something like that, take that always as a serious. But the ones that really go through with, ending their lives, and normally they will not say, based on statistics, okay, they normally wouldn't say, I'm going to end my life. They usually, based on statistics, um, talk about what's going to happen, life after death, or is there life after death, or how is the dying process, and start talking a lot about dying. Or for some people, they may um, start talking about or being grateful to you because you've been there and for them all the time. Whenever they've needed someone, you were always. You kind of get the sense of them taking a farewell, you know. So, anyways, never underestimate and whether they say they're going to end their life, or if you sense there's something weird about this person, because human life is worth so much. So if you secretly have to report that person to the authorities so they can come and get that person, or do whatever you can because you need to save that person. Another thing with long-term stress, and I will take the questions. I see there's some popping up after this slide. Anger. So anger is actually very important to pay attention to, and it's actually one of the worst and for your both physical and mental health. Okay, because anger involves so much of these stress hormones. So what can you do immediately if you start getting angry? So the body, it calibrates itself to attack or to fight or flight in the position you are. So if you got angry while standing up, so it's recommended that you sit down. So if you got angry while sitting, maybe you lay down or you get up. So you have to change do some movements. And also it's advisable if you can have something to drink or bite on, because as soon as you activate those chewing muscles, then the brain gets the message saying, hey, this one person is eating or drinking something, so they are no longer in danger. So pay attention to that. And if you see yourself, going through a lot of mood swings, also that is a sign. And burnouts is also another problem, and it doesn't come overnight. It gradually builds up, and it looks different for most people, but the common and symptoms can be, um, saying, "Oh shoot, I'm going to work tomorrow, or I'm going to that place." You start feeling maybe sensations, and you start hating yourself or the whole environment that you work at. So it looks different. So pay attention to everything actually, because your health is so much more than whatever work or study can ever give you. Yeah. So let me open some of the questions before we move on. What can we as employees do to create a safe and reliable space for our staff? Oh, this is good one. So I would say normalize and talking about mental health, and also appreciate the employees, not only because of their performance. I know it's a lot of, and it sounds a bit weird, but if you appreciate that the person, for the person, the human being they are, and they feel that sense of being appreciated. I mean, you don't have to do much. Just acknowledging the person, saying, "Hey, good morning. How are you? How was your weekend? How was your family? How was your life?" And just make them feel that they're valued at the workplace. Then you're doing a lot for that particular individual, and also they may start performing actually better. Why? Because they feel that they've been acknowledged. Just as simple as that, actually. And create an environment where everybody is accepted for the person they are, and their value is not linked to how they're performing. I know that a lot of companies are under financial pressure, but if you want your employees to perform better, they need to be feel that they're appreciated for being that person they are, first of all. Okay. Um, how can we support a friend or of mine who is going through depression? I'm scared that I may say wrong things. So this is very important, and I appreciate you asking this. Um, so if you have a friend or family and dealing with mental and health issues, remember, if someone comes to you and talks to you about their emotions, emotions are very private. So if they have the guts to talk to you about it, it means it might have taken them actually several days to come to you and open up for you. So what you need to do, first of all, is accept that person with all their feelings and with all their and with everything, and only provide empathic ears. Just listen them out and acknowledge whatever they're feeling. Never um, tell them you shouldn't feel this because you have A, B, C, and D. It's not about it. So accept them. Once they feel that you're accepting, then they start open up, and you may then guide them to a professional that can help them. But the worst thing that we can do is invalidate their emotions, because we're friends of them or we're family of them, and we so dearly want to lift their pain from them, so we get eagerly and over involved and tell them exactly what to do or what not to do. So remember, when you're advising someone, you're using your thinking brain, but these people who are going through this and distress may not be up here, and they can may not be able to use their rationale, so they're operating from the emotional brain. So they hear what you say, but they cannot process it, and this may actually add on their stress. So you thinking you are helping them may actually ruin them more. All right. What are some free ways that one can use to cope with stress? So I want to answer that part at the end, but before that, I want people to understand more of stress and how the brain and the nervous system are linked to the stress. Okay. Yes. So I'm going to show you this an image of the brain. So it's essential that we understand. So the green part, that is the most powerful part of the brain, because that is your survival and fight or flight, and where you operate from. Yeah, because it has the amygdala, which is constantly scanning and your surroundings, and also scanning your feelings and thoughts. So as soon as you start thinking something that is it's scary, then and it will give you all this, and it activates and the limbic system. All right. So let's say, so when someone is under stress, they are down here. Okay, so this is fight or flight. But as an entrepreneur or a student, you want to be up here where you can, be creative, because the frontal lobe is very top here. That's where your creativity and long-term thinking is centered. So now ask yourself, if because of the fear you have about that one project or that exam, and you're down here, how are you going to be creative about finding the solution? That's my question. What do you need to do? You need to de-stress, right? And I will show you the strategies and for how you can do that later on. But this is essential to understand. So next time you need, if you're a smoker, next time you need a cigarette, remember that needing for your craving for a cigarette came from your emotional brain, okay? Before it came to your conscious brain, thinking brain. And all of a sudden you start thinking, oh, I need a cigarette or I need that chocolate cake. But before that, it took a process. And once it takes that process from the emotional brain, it's extremely hard to stop it. So the only thinking you will be doing is how to get that cigarette or how to get that drink or that chocolate cake. I love chocolate cake, by the way, so don't get me wrong. All right. So it's essential you understand how your greatest tool functions. All right. Um, so now I'm approaching and what can be the solution. Okay. So and now it's also essential to understand the autonomic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, that is the fight or flight, and the parasympathetics is rest and digest. So humans, we're in and out of these two nervous systems all the time based on our thinking or what's going on outside there. Okay, So remember, fight or flight, i.e., under stress, everything rearranges so you can survive whatever there is. Okay? Decreased saliva production, increased heart rate. I mean, your whole biology is rearranged. Okay? So here, there's no growth. Here is only to survive. So if you want to, be creative about your um, and product or your uh, whatever, and you're here, uh, you know, you do the math. So it's next to impossible, right? But here you're living. Parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest. You're actually living, and we're here to live, not to survive. We are not in this life to survive. Okay? And worst imprisonment a human being can be in is their mind. Somebody can be in jail but still live and thrive. You see the difference? So now, how can we get out of this fight or flight, i.e., stress, and come to living life, rest and digest? Okay? And the $1 million question is very simple. Some of you guys may, belittle this and think this guy is crazy, but the first step to de-stress is breathe. Yes, you heard me right. Breathe. Okay? And what how do we breathe? I mean, come on, we breathe all the time. Otherwise, we would have passed out if we were not breathing. It's true. But during stress, the only breathing you will be doing is just enough to get you going. But that is not the healthiest. Can you imagine running from um, the lion, yeah, and breathing like this at the same time? That it can happen, right? So when you take a deep breath and have a long exhale, the message your brain gets is this person is no longer in danger. So your whole nervous system will get you out of sympathetics or fight or flight response to rest and digest response, where you're actually growing. You're actually growing physically and also mentally, right? So please never underestimate the power of breathing, conscious breathing. I mean, you don't have to do much. Actually, I'm asking you for is to come back to your breath. Just become conscious about it because breathing usually is unconscious behavior, right? So as soon as and pause and take a deep breath and just observe that breath, feeling your belly is expanding, and then you're breathing out, you know, you coming back to the moment. And guess what? This moment is all you've ever been guaranteed, right? All those fantasies about all the things that can go wrong is just your brain doing its job. And the brain is there to protect you, right? So if the brain, come on, the brain is part of you, it's not you. You're not your behaviors, you're not your emotions, you're not your brain. No, these are part of you, okay? So whatever information, and remember, I've said this earlier, the brain is biased, okay? So if the brain, as in early childhood, as a child, if you dealt with a situation or your caregivers told you this is how we deal with it, this kind of situation, the brain will always remember. Okay? If you've experienced a bad situation or a breakup, I've met so many people, not want to go into a new relationship and seeing all girls are bad or all boys are bad or whatever based on their previous relationship, now that is actually accurate because the brain is telling, hey, we don't do this anymore because we have this experience. But let the brain do its job. It's not the brain to make it and to decide how you're supposed to live. The brain is just doing the job. But it's for you to come out of this experience and wiser, right? But sometimes it's not easy, and when you're in the midst of it. But going for a therapist, so the therapist can have that bird eye view and telling you, my friend, and no wonder, you're experiencing all this anxiety because all these nuts things are connected and they should not, you're overburdening yourself with all, at least you need someone who can look through and show you, right? Learn more about yourself, learn more about your nervous system, learn more about your brain, your biggest asset, or unfortunately for some people, their biggest liability. Okay? So, for the few and last 10 minutes before I open up for more questions, I want you to also become aware of your life. I don't want you to go through life as, robots and and giving your powers away to your boss or to your anybody for that sake, and thinking, I have to do this for him or for her, I have to do this, if I don't do this, blah blah blah. Your worth is not limited to anything actually of external things. What do I mean by external things? Your degree from university cannot determine your worth as a human being. Your position at work or your promotion is not determined by, by who you are. All these things are external things. And in life, we're seeking happiness, right? So stop saying, I can only be happy if I, graduate or if I get this promotion. That is so sad because happiness is actually internal. It's inside job. By the way, our project Inside Out is influenced. It's inspired, by this. What the project aims to do is help individualize and individuals to realize you know, their untapped potentials actually. But by not giving them new tools, external tools or teaching them new skills, but just to go within and actually to discover how amazing they actually are. But unfortunately, society and all this collective stress, what it does is it just narrow minds people for a good reason because stress is survival mode, right? Yeah. So think of these questions, please. What are your biggest stressors? Okay, write it down. Ask yourself: is it financial? Is it relationship? Is it work? What is it? If you choose top three and break it down to the smallest pieces, okay? And what do you do to take care of yourself and your mental health? Like consciously, yeah? Okay? What and who do you value most in life, and how much time are you spending with those people or with that thing you value most? And by the way, what is your purpose here? Because you're obviously here for a purpose, because there's no thing, if you go and study human anatomy and how we're being created or how we've been born and all this process, there's so many things that had to go right at the exact moment to become the person you are. So don't tell me we just came here. Okay? So there's like my hands, there's purpose for my eyes, there has purpose. So every little part of your body, every little cell in your body serves a great purpose. So what is your purpose? And the last question, what is keeping you from spending more time? Seriously, you've got one shot at this life. Okay? So, what is keeping you spending more time with yourself or with those who you love? Yeah? And remember, let me emphasize this. Let me say it again. Your self worth is not based on what degree you have from your university or what job you have or what, and promotion you just got. Simply by being an amazing human being, there's so much, things to value in life. Okay. And I read another quote, speaking of breathing, as long as you're breathing, there's so many rights about you than wrongs about you. And another quote I want you guys to reflect on is there's this person said, I don't remember the name, he said he has been through a lot of miseries in his life, and actually very few have actually happened. So the human mind is extremely good at, fantasizing or, using imagination. And unfortunately, most of those imagination are based on worst case scenario, what can happen. And that future is not even here, right? But the brain, that is how it's designed. It's designed so it can give you all these movies of, things playing in your brain, in your mind, so the brain can have tools when actually, and worst case scenario actually happens. How many situations have you been in you thought this is going to be really bad, and thank God it never showed it turned out to be that bad, right? Think about it. And think about what I started with my presentation saying 90% of why people are hospitalized is due to stress. And autoimmune diseases, worst of the autoimmune diseases that is caused by stress is cancer. Yes, you heard me right, cancer. Why? Stress. Why? Because we fear something that may come. And that thing may never come, but the body is paying the price. So come back to your breath, come back to your movement, because when you deeply breathing, everything comes back to this moment, and you're actually living in this very moment. All those anxieties in the future are not real. So let the brain do its job, and if it gives you all these images of worst case scenario, just be grateful for your defense mechanisms are operating well. Say, my brain, thank you so much for giving me all these crazy ideas, but I'm the boss, right? Thank you. So let me see. There's a question that popped up. Um, how to control those worst case scenarios? Yeah. So no, long-term stress leads up to the brain working this way. Okay, because stress is a survival mode, as we said, right? Yeah. So when someone is under survival mode, everything the negatives will have great emphasis because the positive cannot harm you. So the negative have the potential of harming you, right? So because of the long-term stress, so the only thing the brain nowadays knows is to serve you with those worst case scenarios. So simply come back to breathing. When you deeply breathe, just spend 1 minute, and you can do this anywhere. You can do this while you're, answering nature's call. You can do this on the bus or wherever, Just, you don't need to sit in, any position. You do this as you walk or, then the brain understands that you're no longer in trouble and rearranges your whole biology to live, not to survive. So the more you are in the moment and you come back to your breathing exercise, yeah, eventually those worst case scenario will go away. But know how why you're getting these worst case scenarios. It's because of a lot of stress, and this is how the brain is designed. Okay. Um, and does personality play a role in one being how does it, susceptible to depression and stress related to these stress? Excuse me. Um, so personally, um, I don't like to emphasize on personalities because there are some psychologists who do that, um, but it's not engraved in stones like what personality we have. So we have always the ability to rewire our brain to become our um, best version of ourselves, right? But unfortunately, yes, there are some people who may be more prone to depression because of it could be environmental, first of all, and some people may be, born with, uh, with this because due to generational trauma. And but I would say one thing that is very important. Anybody who's listening is to reevaluate your environment because there's a gene in our body called epigenetics that gets order from the external environment. So guess what? So if you're in a toxic environment, so how do you think your biology is going to respond? Of course, it has to put you in a fight or flight, right? Survival mode. So in a toxic environments, one can thrive, but it's not impossible, but it's next to impossible. So always evaluate your environment, whether it's at home, whether it is at work or school or whatever, because your whole biology is rearranged due to that environment. So I would emphasize always on environment. Great. Um, Other questions that I haven't answered here?
I don't think so. However, I may want to maybe bring forth a question. So, in terms of the stress-related diseases, I don't know if you're familiar with our Kenyan hospitals and Kenyan psychiatric healthcare system, but it may be a bit difficult for some people to access some of this, like this healthcare services and all that, and diagnosis systems or processes. So, what kind of services can you extend to some of the people on here that they can be able to seek the help they need to get to move on with their lives and live a more holistic life? So, can you do that, or can you extend some services?
Z, thank you for your question. Um, I don't know much about what offers there here in Nairobi, and I'm still learning. But personally, I do take on clients. Um, but what I would advise people is, and if they can, and come back to their breathing exercise and reevaluate their environments, I think they will come long ways. And always also remember, um, since we're social beings, um, we're always seeking to get approved from other people and externals. And this is just how it's in our nature. Um, but please remember that your self-worth, it's only you who can actually sincerely value your life. And getting compliments and getting accepted by other people is also important, but it's not everything. So do not limit your self-worth, because a lot of the stress usually stems from this thing. How other people, how do they see in ourselves? How do they see us? And are we good enough? And employees, are we good enough? Students, am I performing well enough? And at the end of the day, you will always live with yourself and with not with anyone else. Um, so do not limit your self value and to anyone else. Actually, first of all, start with yourself. Um, yeah, and if you experience anxiety or depression, um, remember this is what makes us humans. We're emotional beings. So just seek help. As if someone is going through some, flu or God forbid, maybe COVID or something, they go to doctors and seek help, right? So just like you would seek your GB, you should also seek a therapist, because one is, um, is trained in how this body and, somatic in functions and conditions. And the other one is, specialized in how your brain and, thoughts and emotions and work. And, so this is me just normalizing, in mental health symptoms and conditions. So we all have, to a certain degree, anxiety and depression. But and like any other diseases, if it's stopping you participating in what you used to do, like being a social person or other activities, then you should start paying attention to it. And it's normal. Okay. So I hope I answered your question, Z. And but hopefully, as I mentioned earlier, and the project Inside Out, and we're looking for funds, and we've and when we get those funds, and the aim is to also provide affordable or maybe also free counseling for people who may not be able to afford oneself. But it's at the early stages and still. And yeah, if you guys who are listening are going to listen in the future, would like to donate, please just follow us on our social medias, so we can, yeah, provide this well needed services to mankind, and because this is a global initiative. And yes, I think I have answered. Let me see, there's more one question. Working as a genuine entrepreneur between a bunch of corrupt, dishonest, and unhealthy competitive entrepreneurs. What, how do you cope and make the best out of the environment? Yes, so this is, thank you so much for your question. So basically, it's what I've said earlier. This is sounds like a very toxic environment. So you, as an entrepreneur, trying to and develop a product or service that is needed. So go within. Start with yourself, and why are you doing what you're doing? By the way, and who are you doing it for? So go back to the basic questions, and do you only have to work with these people or with these corrupt people? Can you find other people who may help you? And so I think once we really know why we're doing this, I think the how will come about in itself. So yeah, just but it's good that you're aware of the people you're working with, so you don't have that, and false, expectations, and getting disappointed all the time. So be mindful, be intelligent, be have your social skills, and if you need to meet people, even though they're corrupt or whatever, you have a purpose, you know where you're going with your product or your service, meet with them, and maybe I would advise you, yeah, just be alert, just stay awake. Um, and if you have to be, and be kind to yourself first of all, and something that I just remembered, and it's self-compassion, because you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, so if you have that intention, uh, remember we're energetic being, so so the energy will keep on flowing, but intention directs the energy towards the right direction. So if you have the intention, and it's a noble intention, so that means your product is already created, right? So this enables you to go through the process with no stress. And once you don't stress, you're always accessing your thinking and creative brain, which you really need once you're, developing any product or service. So self-compassion and then collective compassion. So then you can become compassion towards those corrupt people and dishonest. Why? Because that's all they know, unfortunately. So a person is not his or her behavior, but there's always that scared little child that is driving this behavior. So it can be very, with suit and powerful woman or man, um, but deep inside that is that scared little child. So once you understand this, because you're compassionate towards yourself, then you can become compassionate towards them, because you will see there's some scared child behind the behavior. And this maybe helps you, in your path. It might help you get the deals you want, because you're now your human intelligence. But if you become greedy, or and have any resentment, or you want to hit back, also remember this is normal. This is how we're hardwired to hit back and become. But remember that is your defense mechanisms. Okay, so get back with your breathing exercise and come back to your sense. And you don't have anything to prove. This is your product or your service. Yeah, and you will make it because you have that noble intention, and it's done. So now all that is left is go through the process. Yeah, and remember, you're always on time, on your unique timeline. Everybody has their unique timeline. So there's no stress to, um, it's good to be ambitious, and to have goals and say by that date I want to be there. But if you don't reach, it doesn't matter, because you've already reached there by your intention. So if it takes you a month later and extra, or 2 months, or maybe a year or a decade, so what? It's you going through the process, and it's all about the process, right? So I want to emphasize on this, because um, there's no stress linked to this. Yeah. All right. I hope I answered your question.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for interacting with us on this discussion. For those who want to review came on late and you'd like to see what we had discussed in the beginning, or see the initial slides of his presentation, you can find this on YouTube in about 48 hours. Then, if you also want to get to know him and get to see what he does, on the chat section, I sent links to his website and to his LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to know more about us, you can also go to our website. I'll link it in the individual, but also you can just search nairobigarage.com and you'll be able to see a lot of our services and solutions to your business journey. My name has been Z Gitahi, and thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me and Abdi and get to know more about mental health care for you as an individual and as an entrepreneur. We hope to see you next time, which is next year. Wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and stay safe. Have a good day.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.